Well, let me, for the very first time, say happy 2021. Doesn't it feel good to kind of say that number? You know, it's just such a great sounding number versus the prior number of the prior year. But no, I hope you have had a great kickoff to the new year, that is 2021. And in years past, I would, for a couple weeks, because I don't know, I just kind of love the new year. I'd get up on stage for 3 or 4 weeks and be like, Happy New Year, Happy New Year. And then people would pull me aside and be like, hey dude, the new year's passed and it's kind of done now. You can stop saying it. But this year, because of last year, I think I have permission to say it every week if I want to, you know, because we're so looking forward to the new year. And I know that there's a lot of the different memes and sayings and stuff going around all over the place just about 2020. But for me, one of the things that I don't want to see is I don't want to go to the eye doctor this year and have him tell me, good news, you have 2020 vision. I don't want 2020 vision. I want 2019 vision, 2021 vision, if that's even possible. I don't want to be really reminded of 2020 because I think like for many of you as well, 2020 was a very challenging year. And I think this is why when the clock struck midnight and the crystal ball fell ringing into the new year, our tendency was to go, all right, 2020, I'm going to turn the page on that. I'm going to forget about it. And I'm going to move into a beautiful and wonderful and hopefully much better new year, that is 2021. Well, I have good news and I have bad news for you. Let me start with the bad news first. We can't just turn the page on 2020 just because we moved into a brand new year known as 2021. And the reason is this principle. Difficult circumstances reveal problems that already existed. Now, difficult circumstances, 2020, you don't need me to tell you about the difficult circumstances of 2020. We all face difficult circumstances in 2020. But these difficult circumstances they brought to the surface, they exposed problems. They could be emotional problems. They could be relational problems. They could be financial problems. They could be other things. They revealed problems that already existed, means before 2020. Shortly after my wife and I bought the house that we currently live in, shingles would randomly just fly off our roof. And especially it would happen when we would have days where there was stronger winds. Well, one winter we had this really bad storm and the winds were over 50 miles an hour. And in the middle of the night, right above where I was sleeping, we have a 2-story, I heard this really loud sound and I'm like, oh, that does not sound very good. I knew something bad had happened, but you know, I love to sleep, so not bad enough for me to get out of bed and check what happened. So I prayed and then went back to sleep. But I got up the next day only to discover that half of our roof had blown off. Now that storm wasn't the problem. That storm actually revealed a problem that existed before that storm, and that was we had a defective roof. And the same thing is true for us. The difficult circumstances of 2020 revealed problems that were there before 2020. You know, the problems that maybe it revealed in your life is maybe it revealed you have unhealthy anxiety and fear that you deal with. Maybe the problems for you were unhealthy or sinful habits or outlets, or maybe an addiction that you didn't know was there came to the surface, or maybe for you there were certain idols in your life, or maybe it was just different emotions in the way you express or don't express yourself when things get tough. You know, maybe the problem for you was different relational or financial problems. I can't tell you how many conversations I had last year were people who walked away from their faith and walked away from their faith because of 2020. And here's how the conversations pretty much went. They went, hey, Mark, you know, I used to, but now I don't anymore because of just all the stuff that happened in 2020. And it was a habit for me, but it's not a habit anymore. It was a priority, you know, it created all these doubts in me because of all the stuff that happened. And here's what I say, or what I would say back almost every single time. 2020 didn't create the problems in your faith. 2020 revealed problems in your faith that were there way before 2020. See, our tendency is to blame 2020 for all the stuff that happened. 2020 didn't create the problems. 2020 revealed them. That's why we just can't turn the page on this past year, because the problems that 2020 revealed will go with us as we go into a brand new year. But here's the good news. If the difficult circumstances reveal problems that already existed, well, we have a very important choice to make. We can either just choose to ignore the problems altogether, or we can blame 2020 for them, that's 2020's fault, and we can continue to do that. Or we can take the time and wrestle through the problems that were revealed because of 2020. And we can do that, and we want to do that not only so we can turn the page on it, but we want to do it for something more than that, so that we are set up to receive what God has for us in 2021. And I believe that God has for us a year of better mental and emotional health, better connection, better relationship, better families, better impact, and of course, better faith. Now, this is why I'm calling this message Before You Turn the Page, with the key word right here, before. One of my favorite life and leadership quotes is from John Maxwell. Many of you have heard of John Maxwell. He's a former pastor and is considered now a leadership guru, I think they call him, leadership coach, expert, whatever it is. But I love this quote. Here's what John says. He says, "Experience is not the best teacher. Evaluated experience is." Our tendency is when we go through something that we might step back and reflect on the good and the bad of that experience, and then we think, okay, I'm glad I went through that. I learned a lot. I'm better for it. Now I can just move on. And if that's how you address experiences, you believe that because you've experienced something, you are automatically wiser for it. Listen, experience doesn't make us wiser. Experience makes us older. Experience can make us poorer. Experience can make us madder, and experience can even make us lonelier. Experience doesn't make us wiser. Evaluated experience makes us wiser. And so that's what I want to do today as we kick off the new year. I want to take some time and have us do some evaluating of 2020 so that we can fully move forward into 2021. And the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to equip you with 3 things that'll help you do that evaluation. And then at the end of my message, I'm going to challenge you to do something that most of you are not going to want to do. But I'm going to challenge you to do it, because if you don't, it's just going to follow you into this year and into the next years. I'm going to challenge you to carve out some time and do your own evaluation. All right, so 3 things I want to equip you to evaluate this past year. Here's the first thing. You evaluate the why first, not just the what. We evaluate the why, not the what. How many of you made a New Year's resolution of some kind, whether officially or unofficially in your mind this past year? How many of you did? 4 of you. That's really good. I'm glad we're raising the bar to be great people around. That's really great. Well, most of us experience what is called the New Year's resolution cycle. And the New Year's resolution cycle goes like this. We enter into a new year, and so we make a resolution in some area of our life. But then guess what happens about 2 weeks in? At least that's what studies show. We stop doing that behavior and we default back to the prior behavior. And we continue to do that until the next new year rolls around. And then what do? We make the same resolution, or pretty much the same resolution we did before. And we keep repeating the cycle over and over again. Years ago, when my wife Donna and I bought our first house, we were living in Kentucky at the time, and we bought this house, and they had put in a new lawn. They sodded it, which I didn't even know there was such a thing until I bought that house. And it had been sodded before we had purchased it, and they didn't really care for it, so it just weeds all over the place. Now, I know this can surprise you, I'm not a very handy guy, to say it kindly. And so I thought, pulling weeds, I can do that, So I go out one Saturday, and I'm just ripping out these weeds. I'm just ripping them out, at record speed. There were so many weeds. It took me 3 hours and 14 of those large garbage bags, filled them up, put them out to the front, and I'm patting myself on the back. I'm like, man, I killed it, man. I was awesome. So I walked in, told my wife about it. She's like, good job, all's well. Well, about a month later, I look out the window, and not only are there weeds in our backyard, there are more weeds than there were before. So I'm telling Donna about it. How could this happen and all this stuff? And she goes, well, how did you pull the weeds? I go, honey, I just pulled them out. And then she asked me this question, and the nerve of her to ask this question, okay? She asked me this question: did you pull the roots out? To which I was going, Honey, of course I did not. Now here's what I learned about pulling weeds on that day. You will never get rid of the weeds, and notice I plural weeds there, okay? You will never get rid of the weeds until you pull the roots. You want to make change in your life because of stuff that was revealed in 2020, or you want a fresh start, or you want better in some way, but you keep repeating the same cycle over and over again. One of the reasons why you keep repeating the same cycle is because you focus on the behavior, you focus on the what. And when you focus on the what, it's like pulling the weed out without pulling the root out. The why is the real reason driving the what. The why is the root. Now let me give you an example of this, how this might play out in your life. Let's just say 2020 revealed, because of the things that happened in 2020, revealed that you need more financial margin in your life, that you have too much debt in your life, and that you need to get your finances in order. Now, instead of just kind of jumping into 2021 and you make a bunch of changes and all that stuff, I want you to evaluate the why by asking yourself why questions. Why don't you have margin in the first place? Why do you have all the debt that you do? Why did you feel the need to go there? And I'm telling you, you continue to ask the why questions and you are honest with yourself about the answer, eventually the real reason will be revealed to you. I wanted to keep up with the Joneses. I'm not happy, so I thought stuff would make me happy. You know, I thought that there was no other way. You see, the debt is, or the too much debt is a byproduct of a deeper problem. You find the why, you find the root. The Apostle Paul, he actually tells us this very same thing. Here's what the Apostle Paul says. He says, examine yourself to see whether you are in the faith. Test yourself. This word examine. Do an honest internal inventory of your lives. Now, most of us, we don't do this because we don't have the time to, it's uncomfortable, and we don't see immediate benefits from doing it. But you can't turn the page on 2020 or other things in our life if we don't do this, because what's on the inside eventually shows itself on the outside. So the first thing that we need to do, we need to evaluate the why before the what. Here's the second thing we need to do. I want you to evaluate who before what. Evaluate who before what. You want to make change in your life, you got to continue to do what's called inward work. And before you get to the what, you go from why to who, because the why and the who are very much connected with one another. Now let me tell you why the who is so important. Our tendency is, when we face problems in our life, is we let those problems define us. I mean, think about some of the things that we say. We'll say things like, well, this is just the way that I am. This is just who I am. I have an addictive personality. I'm not a very disciplined person. I'm just an anxious person. I'm just not good with money. I'm just not good with relationships. What do? We let the issue become our identity. And as a result, we live our lives with things that God wants to set us free from. To evaluate the who, here's a question I want you to ask yourself. Who do you want to become? I want you to reset your identity, not around the problem, but who you want to become. You know, this is where I want you to go. When people describe you, who do you want them to describe? You might say, I want to be someone who makes an impact in the lives of the next generation. I want to be someone who lives by faith and not by fear. I want to have God-honoring relationships in all my relationships. I want to be someone who is a godly parent, a godly spouse. I want to be someone who is clean. I want to be someone who is sober. I want to be someone who's financially free and generous along the way. Who do you want to become? Now, the reason why this is so essential for us to do is because our identity always shapes our action. It always does. There's no exceptions here. You see, what you believe about who you are ultimately determins what you do. I've said this before, but when my kids were in elementary school, every Friday I would go to lunch with them. School let me in, and so I did this for about 6 years. And so, you do this after a time, and then all the kids around the school know you, and they had about 20 elementary boys, and they would, because they knew I was coming on Friday, they'd save a seat for me. And so I was like one of the kids, which I love because I love being around kids. And there's this one time where one of the kids, and every elementary school has at least one of them. I'm glad they do. It makes it fun. He decided that he was going to do something crazy during lunch, and he decided that he was going to snort some milk up a straw, and he was going to snort some food up a straw and all that stuff. And so, he's kind of preparing himself, and you can kind of see this going on. And of course, all the kids are like, oh, this is going to be awesome. This is going to be awesome, And so he does it. He just starts snorting stuff up his nose and all that stuff. And everyone's like, do it, do it, do it. And I thought, this is awesome. And so I'm like, do it. I'm like one of the kids, this is really cool. I want to see what's going to happen. And so, I'm I'm with the kids, there's 20 of us just cheering him on. As I'm doing this, I lock eyes with one of the teacher's aides. And she gives me this look, and the look is, remember who you are. You are the adult in the room, and what he is doing is not very good for him. When you remember who you are, you will then remember what to do. So, first two things. Evaluate the why. Don't get to the what yet. And one other thing before you get to the what, evaluate the who before you get to the what. Now when we get to the what, here's what I want you to do. Final thing, strive for daily surrender before self-discipline. Now please understand, I'm not saying self-discipline is not important. It is important. I'm just suggesting a different order to things. In fact, this different order, that if you do, you will actually become more self-disciplined. The more I study the 12 steps of AA, the more I am convinced that they are for everyone. Do you know what the first step is in the process, in the 12 steps? Do you know what it is? It's admitting, I am powerless over blank. Here's what I know about you. And the reason I know about you is because I know it about me, and it's true for every single one of us. That whatever was revealed to you, whatever problem was revealed in your life because of circumstances of 2020, it is bigger than you. And here's how I know it is bigger than you. Because if it wasn't bigger than you, you would already have overcome it and move on with your life. But the harder you try, the more you fail. Why? Because you are powerless to overcome it. The word surrender actually means to submit to the power of another. It's this idea of going, God, I've tried everything to do on my own, and I just keep failing and failing. This is bigger than me. I'm going to submit myself to you and your power. They even had a posture of this in the Bible. They would get on their knees and they would hold their arms up like this, or their hands out like this when they would pray, with palms up, and it was this sign of surrender. Control, surrender. Now, I know for some of you, the thought of surrendering to God is a scary thing, but here's what you need to know. The question isn't if you will surrender, the question is who will you surrender to? You will either continue to surrender to the problem that has power over you, or you will surrender to the one who can set you free from it. Daily surrender. And it's a daily thing, and it's not one and done. Daily surrender is actually to God is actually the very best place to be. Because when we do, we open ourselves up to the one who has all the power we will ever need. I want to share with you a verse that was a huge verse for me in 2020. Because like everyone, I was dealing with my own problems that were revealed because of the stuff of 2020. I posted about some of them if you follow me on social media. But one of the problems for me was I don't deal with loss very well. I just kind of ignore it, move on, tough it out, all that stuff. And I think a part of that is I like security and I like control. Does anybody like security and like control? But I mean, I do. And so dealing with all this loss of from 2020, not knowing how to deal with it. And so to try to comfort myself, because that's what we do, To try to comfort myself, I would just look for different outlets. I would try to withdraw. I went through different bouts of depression. And this verse for me was so important because here's my tendency. I don't know if you do this as well, but my tendency is when I come face to face with my own problems and my own sin and my own failure, my tendency is to go, you know what, that's it. That's it. I'll always be this way. Things will never change. I'll always be defined by this. This verse reminds me that none of that is true. That with God, there's more to the story because God is a great story writer. So here's the verse, and it's written by the Apostle Paul. And this verse is actually a promise, which is great. And he says, and we know, and Paul's writing like, this is certain. This is certain. This promise you can trust. And we know that in all things, God works for the good of those who love him and who have been called according to his purpose. And we know that in all things, that in the good and the bad and the ugly, that for me, when I come face to face with some of that stuff and I go, oh, that is so dark, that is so ugly. And rather than trying to define myself by that, I look at that and go, oh, you know what that is? That falls under the all things category. That God's grace is bigger than any of that. And then he says these two words, God works. I want you to think about how powerful that is. That God is always up to something. That if we allow him to, that God will work in any situation. That he can take our pain and turn it into purpose. That he can take our loss and breathe life into us. That he can take our fear and use it as a stepping stone to build our faith. That with God, every single thing that we experience, that we do, is redeemable. And he says in all things, God works. And then he gives two conditions. For those who love him, who get up each day and go, all right, God, I don't have it figured out, I don't have it all together, but you know what, your will before mine, I'm going to defer to you. And then the second one, who have been called according to his purpose, that God can bring purpose and significance out of anything that we go through, and he'll do it for those who love him. But we can't just turn the page on something and move on. We got to be willing to go through the process that will allow him to do that. Well, that's what I want to challenge all of us to do before we just start rolling into 2021 and it just keeps going. I want to challenge us to do just that. I'm going to give you a challenge, and the challenge is this. I'm going to give you 4 questions. And these questions are just a summary of what I just talked about, those 3 things. And here's what I want to challenge you to do. And I know you're not going to want to do it, but come on. If you don't, whatever was revealed in 2020, it's just going to follow you into 2021. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to take 30 minutes, and I want you to get a pad, paper, and a pen, and I just want you to write out the answers to these questions. And maybe for you, you pray the answers. This is your way of kind of talking to God, but would you be willing to do this? Here are the 4 questions. First one is this. What is one problem that was revealed in 2020 that you need to address in 2021? Now notice I said a couple things. I said one problem. You're like, well, Mark, I've got like 5 to 10 problems. It's okay. We all do, okay? But just pick one. Just one. And notice the word need here. I use the word need because we need to do it. You're not going to want to do it. But I said need because you need to do it because once again, it's just going to follow you. You aren't outrunning this thing. You know, maybe for you, it's your marriage. And all the togetherness of last year revealed that you weren't really together. Or it's your finances. You know, the economic fallout revealed that you weren't in a place that you could handle a fallout like that. Or maybe there's mental health issues that you're dealing with. In fact, we're going to deal with them starting next week. But for you, it has always been, I don't need to get any help for that. I don't need to deal with that. And you just kind of shoved it under the rug. But it revealed in 2020, you can't do that anymore. Or maybe it's some unhealthy outlet. You know, when you get stressed, you turn to something. And maybe you turn to alcohol, or maybe you turn to drugs, or maybe you turn to porn, or you withdraw somewhere, or maybe it's your faith. You used to walk with God, but now you don't walk with God anymore. Just that one thing. Come on, one thing that you need to deal with. And then I want you to follow up with this question. What is the why behind it? Let's get underneath this thing a bit. Well, we're struggling in our marriage. Well, why is that? Well, she always, no. Not the spouse. Why you? Well, I'm just an anxious person. I have anxiety problems. Oh yeah, why is that? Well, I don't like it when, why is that? Well, I used to walk with God, but now I don't walk with God anymore. Well, why is that? Well, because all the stuff that happened in 2020 that created doubts. Okay, why did that create doubts? Listen, this is such an important question. What is the real reason driving your decisions? And then here's the third thing. Who do you want to become? This is where we don't let the problem define us anymore. I want to blank. Reset your identity. Because remember, identity always reveals itself in our actions. And then here's the last one. Would you be willing to surrender to God? Would you be willing to stop trying to change you with you? Would you be willing to invite the very Spirit of God into your circumstances and say, all right, God, I've tried and I failed. I'm going to admit it. I can't do this. This is bigger than me. I am powerless to overcome this. I'm going to surrender to you. And so the way that I'm going to close my time out and the way we're going to kick off the new year together is we're going to have our own time of surrender. And the way that we're going to do that is I'm going to ask everybody, and even if you're not a Christian or whatever, you don't have to do this, but just try it. And I want everybody to take their palms, face them up this way in a sign of surrender. Remember, control, security, surrender. Surrender. What is that one problem for you that was revealed? Don't blame it on 2020. It's not 2020's fault. What's the one problem that was revealed that you go, I'm going to address this. I'm going to address this, God. You know, maybe for some of you, that one thing that 2020 revealed is you believe in Jesus, but you never really surrendered your life to him. And maybe as we have this time of surrender together, maybe that's what you're going to do. It's the best decision you will make going into 2021. And so everybody bow their head and close their eyes. And as I pray, I want you to just pray your own version of my surrendered prayer about that one area and just say, I'm done running, I'm done ignoring, I'm addressing. And God, I'm surrendering to you because I can't kick this thing, defeat this thing, overcome this thing. But I know with your help, you can. Father, 2020 was crazy in so many ways. And there were so many things that were out of our control, but there was also a lot of things that were in our control. And a lot of that was revealed because of the things that were out of our control. And so, Father, our response in the past has been to ignore, to hide, to blame. We're not doing that anymore because we know that's just going to go with us into 2021, and we want it better. You want a better 2021 for us. So, Father, whatever that one area that you have laid on our heart, we're going to go after it, but not on our own. We're going to go after it with you. We surrender ourselves already. We begin the process of inviting you. We can't, you can. We are powerless, but you are not. And we open up our hands to you. And Father, there's some who have just this entire time in their life, well, I believe in Jesus, but I've never taken the step to surrender my life to you. Father, if 2020 revealed anything, it's the stuff that we put hope in. It's all unstable and it's all uncertain, but you're not. And so may we place our hope and our trust in you. Father, we give you this next year. We don't know what's ahead. We don't know what it's going to look like, but here's what we do know. You do. And so we surrender to the one who has ultimate control over it all. And it's God is the very, very best place for us to be. I would pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.